And just while we're getting ready to start the class, Thursday the 15th, there will be an interfaith community Thanksgiving service at Pastor Drew Willard's church. This is something we've done for many years. If you can make it, please speak to us afterwards. We love to have a showing of folks. We love to have a showing of folks. And it's da'wah. So what happens is after these events, there's refreshments usually, there's social time, and the more there is of us, the more they can learn about us. And so that way everybody doesn't stand in line to ask me the questions. Each one can get the blessing of answering a question for someone. So if you can, are anybody at all available for Thursday? You're going to be there? Good. Of course. It's at the United Church of Christ in Oxford. It's the Villages, basically. Yeah. We do a lot of interfaith work with them, and so it is 6 p.m. It's 6:30. Okay. I thought Maysoon sent out an email to it, so I'm trying. Okay, all right. I thought so. All right, alhamdulillah. Also, Sister Najla's sister is not well. She had a stroke, and I would like to ask everybody to please make dua for her. What's her name, sister? Layla. Okay, so if you would please make dua for her. She's unable to feed herself now, right? And so please make dua for her. Anybody else have any requests that or anything going on that you'd like us to make dua for as a family? Okay, I always like to ask. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. So let me just make sure before we get going. So that's Thursday. Our next will be on the 19th of November. I will be lecturing at Eastern Florida State, and I believe on the 26th as well. And of course, there's Juma here on Fridays. And Friday we had 2 new folks at Juma. They may end up coming today or may not. They had mentioned that. And just want to share this with you. Being here in the last 2 weeks, I've actually been interviewed by 4 students that knew nothing about Islam, and now they know about Islam. So it's really, I want to express my sincere appreciation to all of you who support this work, because we could not do it without you. It would be very difficult. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. And also for those of you who remembered my 60th birthday, thank you again. I was my mom would really scale me out if she knew about it. I typically send a thank you note within 2 weeks of anything. I was like ingrained in my head. With my being down in my back, I completely forgot it. So thank you to all of you who remembered the phone calls, the cards, the Amazon gift card, all the stuff, the prayers, most importantly. Thank you very much. And I think that's it for the examples. For the announcements. Examples. Oh, well. So, yeah, it definitely is. I apologize that today we do not have our screens for some reason. There's some kind of problem going on with the system here. So I will slow down a little bit in my teaching since you cannot see these slides today. So just know that I'll try to accommodate that, inshallah. In alhamdulillah ta'ala, nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udhu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. ومن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Indeed, all praise is due to Allah. We praise Him. We seek refuge with Allah from the evil in our soul and from our sinful deeds. Those who are guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no one can misguide them. Those who are not guided by Allah, there is no guide for them. I bear witness that there's no deity, there's no God worthy of worship except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that Muhammad S.A.W. is His servant and messenger. O you who believe, revere Allah as He should be revered, and die not except as Muslims. Amma ba'd. So today we are going to be looking at Al-Majid, and best translated to mean the resplendent. A word that you don't hear very much, but of course when you see the root of this word, you see the word splendid. And then of course resplendid. And so when you think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, every millisecond, every particle of a second, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is splendid. And splendid. We say the resplendent, but re in front of that draws our attention to the fact that every single second of our life is splendid. We may not think of it, we may not feel that when calamity comes, when we're going through a bala, but in fact, if you really know Allah by the name that we're going to talk about today, you will actually be able to reprogram yourself that everything is splendid. No matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, no matter what's going on in your life, that in fact, the fact that you know Allah, the fact that you're called to this exalted standard, the fact that you have the haqq, the very fact that you're alive and can still repent, that everything is just all splendid. If we look though to the definitions, it's also referred, this name you'll find in many books, as the all-glorious, the majestic, the most honorable, and praiseworthy. The one who is glorious, dignified, majestic, bountiful, and exceedingly generous. So, I mean, think about it. What has to happen in the world for people to say, that was splendid? That was just splendid. But the fact that I just breathe is splendid. The fact that I can see you is splendid. The fact that I can hear you is splendid. The fact that I can stand here is splendid. Everything is splendid. The one whose essence is the perfection of majesty and glory, abounding in goodness. The one whose majesty, glory, and generosity deserves all praise and honor. From the root mim, ja, dal, which has the following classical Arabic connotations: to be glorious, dignified, majestic, noble, honorable, to be lauded, exalted, sublime, and to be liberal, bountiful, exceedingly generous. And this name is found in the Holy Quran. If I just look to those definitions, what are the attributes that I will add to my life? What would you see? What would be materialized, realized, if I am actually aware of this attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And it's found in Surah 11, Surah Hud, verse 73, answering the messengers, dost thou deem it strange that God should decree what Allah wills? The grace of God and Allah's blessings be upon you, O people of this house. Verily, ever to be praised, sublime is Allah. So a lot of people you will see in the translation or in the discussion of this refer to Allah as the sublime. Al-Majid in language, Majd, is glory. And if it is combined with good deeds, a person's own prestige will come to be called glory. It is also brave, strong, generosity, open-handedness, and gracious conduct. So here we see that you will have splendid conduct if you adopt this name. That people, when they meet you, that they will say, this is the person who has the most outstanding character, the most generous, the most merciful, the most benevolent, the kindest. Al-Majid connotes general honor or abundance of wealth. One who is Majid is one who is extremely generous. Al-Majid is the one who has the utmost limit of glory, the one whose benevolence is great. I don't hear, I'm a person that's very attuned to words, and I love words. I don't hear the word glorious used a lot anymore. I don't know if that's everybody else's experience, but I remember growing up that people would say, oh, that's just glorious. So imagine, what would it mean to be glorious? I'm trying to get your spiritual juices, your spiritual mind, not this akal, but the spiritual mind working. What does it mean to be glorious?
To always be at peace.
It will mean something perhaps different for each person, but I want you to contemplate, ponder, and reflect on what it means to you. Because if you don't individualize it, how will you actually internalize it and then manifest it? Because otherwise it will just be theory. It will just be words, ideas. Imam Ghazali has said that Al-Majid is the great one, the one whose status is sublime, who is most benevolent. Al-Qushayri said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one whose status is tremendous, whose benevolence is great. Imam Ghazali says Allah is the one who is honored, whose actions are beautiful, who is generous in giving. If I were to focus on Al-Majid from the time I get up from Fajr to the time I go to bed, all of my actions would be glorious, would be honorable. Even that others will see this. They will see me as a tremendous person, a person of tremendous character, of tremendous kindness. And yet, we have to ask ourselves the question, are we even mediocre in any of this attribute? What percentage of time would somebody look at us and say they are aware of this attribute and then they manifest it? Others have said that Al-Majid is the one whose status is sublime, who is gracious, who grants favors to all others, who is glorified because of the divine's actions. Somehow it's often promoted or projected that we are only to be good to the believers. The Quran calls us to be good to the neighbors who are near and far, and the scholars have said that these neighbors are not Muslim. They are all of the neighbors. They are our earth brothers and sisters. How often can we say that this week we granted a favor to someone? Can we say that today we have an intention to grant a favor to someone? Can we say that those people found us gracious? Or did they find us harsh and hard-hearted and unforgiving and unmerciful and rigid? Who is glorified because of the divine's actions, who is glorified by the divine's creation due to the divine's greatness. The divine is the one who alone has the perfect honor, the spacious kingdom since time immemorial, the one who does not disappoint anyone, whose will is always carried out. The divine is the one whose honor is not earned, whose actions are never abhorred, whose benevolence is beautiful, who gives most generously. So as we look at these things, it is so much and such a profoundly deep meaning, definition, so encompassing of so many things. Al-Razi points out that the great name Al-Majid permits two meanings. One of them is that the divine is the one who has all the perfect honor and glory, sublimity and greatness of status in the divine's own self and the divine's qualities and the divine's actions. A person who is Majid is the one who has a great deal of wealth and who is very charitable. Allah Almighty has described the divine's holy Quran as being Majid due to the abundance of the benefits that one can derive from it. So imagine that if we see this Quran as the splendid Quran, if we truly see it as having splendor, then we will pick it up every day. So we will say with our lips, oh, mashallah, this is the kalam of Allah, the unchanged word of Allah. It has not changed for 1450 years. And we will go on and on and on about it. But when is the last time we touched it? When is the last time we picked it up? We have to ask ourselves, is what we say with our speech and what we do with our life in harmony? Is there integrity there? Is there synergy there? Or is there not? We have to ask ourselves that question. Allah Almighty has described the Divine's Holy Quran as being Majid due to the abundance of the benefits that can be derived from it. I wanted to go back again and speak to the wealth piece. There may be many of us that don't have a lot of money, but we may have a wealth in being able to give. We may have a wealth of knowledge in a certain area. And of course, I'm trying to speak in the context of my life on this earth, because really and truly, when we take I.S.L.A.M, knowledge, as a whole, we recognize how little we have. But to the other person who does not know, they see us as having a wealth of knowledge. Are we abundant with it? Are we generous with it? Al-Majid, Allah Almighty, is the one who gives out abundantly, who grants the Divine's favors continuously. Some scholars say that this great name combines in it the meanings of both great names, Al-Jalil, the majestic, and Al-Wahhab, the giver of gifts. So often we have looked at comparisons in various names, and names that scholars have said are similar. And yet what we see every time we examine another one of the names, and may Allah forgive me, I think that Al-Majid is either number 48 or 49. I think it's 49. And some people differ, because in the Asma wa Sifat of Allah, some people do not include Allah. They just include the others with the attributes. So this is where sometimes you get off one number. Sort of like the Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Some people count that in the verses and how many ayat, and some people do not. All meanings of perfect and inclusive glory are always referred to Allah Almighty, and all of them combined are but a drop in the ocean of the Divine's glory. Glory is also attached to the Divine's prophets, to the successors of the latter, and to the Mujahideen, the strugglers in the cause of Islam. The great name Al-Majid, the glorious, actually that's Al-Majid, the glorious, is mentioned after the great name Al-Majid. And why is that? What is the benefit of mentioning Al-Majid after mentioning Al-Majid? Abu Sulaiman al-Khatabi answers this question thus: it is possible that this name is simply a repetition of the other with a slight variation in the structure of the word in order to emphasize one and the same meaning, which is abundance of wealth. To say Al-Wajid, Al-Majid, the finder, the glorious, is to describe the Divine as the one who is rich and who enriches everyone else. When you do not feel enriched, if you will ponder and reflect on this name, all of a sudden, I promise you, if you really ponder and reflect, you will feel enriched. And if you do not feel wealthy and you ponder and reflect on this name, all of a sudden you will feel extremely wealthy. You will feel like a trillionaire or a billionaire, because you can't live on $1 million anymore. It won't last you a lifetime anymore. So we have to think big. We have to think billionaires, trillionaires like that nowadays. Al-Wajid indicates that the Divine is capable of doing whatever the Divine pleases, but Al-Majid means the Divine's power and might are perfect, and so are the Divine's qualities of generosity, mercy, the granting of the Divine's favors and benevolence. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has described the Holy Quran as Majid in Surah Qaf, Surah 50, verse 1. Qaf, by the honored, glorious Quran. So here again, we see this word, a word that associates with benevolence and mercy and generosity and abundance. We know that the Quran is abundant in so many ways. In fact, it is shafa for us. Even if you do not know what it means, and I testify that I believe that much of my recovery in my life took place when I've been sick because of listening to the Quran. I have seen the Quran recited over people who were not well, and the next day they didn't have to have surgeries. I've seen this in my life. I understand and I experience in my life the abundance of Holy Quran, even with my deficits in Arabic. When I sit at my desk and I ponder and reflect on the Quran, I come away feeling rich. I come away feeling like I have been to the best banquet in the world. I feel filled. The Holy Quran is Majid because of the abundance of wealth of knowledge, good manners, and sublime goals it contains, and due to the benefits it contains, so it is beneficial for humans both in the life of this world and the life to come. And we'll talk more about the good manners, because the subject of adab in Islam is huge. It is a whole science. And yet today, how often do you hear or see that there's a class on adabs? It is fundamental for Muslims to know adab, to know etiquettes. When I grew up in the deep south, Emily Post was the guide for etiquette. It was part and parcel of our life to know how Emily Post did things. As a Muslim, it's part and parcel of our life to know the abundance of the Quran and the adabs that are there. If we do not produce that, then how are we the doers of peace? How have we truly surrendered to it if we are actually not applying it? Is that surrender? I have it here, but I'm not applying it. One who personifies in his or her conduct the essence of this great name, Al-Majid, will be gracious in all circumstances, while also being most cultured, characterized by refinement, cultivated, well-informed, enlightened, and discerning. Interestingly enough, in the Bible we find a verse that says, the natural man receiveth not the things of the Spirit, for they are foolishness unto him. And then there are these verses that follow that talk about the only one who can discern is the one who knows the Theopanoupaios, the one who knows the God-breathed word. If you do not know the divine revelation, then you are lost. You cannot be in guidance without it. Interestingly enough, I've done a lot of research, and I've actually worked with this in some therapeutic situations. How many people have heard of a book that's written by Muskawi called Refinement of Character? Has anyone ever heard of this? Yeah. It's a very old treatise. You've heard it from me, right? Okay. It's one of the books that I love, one that I hold very dear to my heart because it taught me a great deal about the soul. It has taught me a whole lot about the soul. Interestingly enough, in Arabic, the word tahdib comes from hadaba. So if you look at the Arabic, it's called tahdib al-akhlaq, which is how to clean and train and improve your character. What is the original character? What is the character of every single human? When I differ in a matter, I look to Quran and Sunnah. Every man and woman was born on the fitrah of Allah. That is your character. That is your natural, or I like to use the word spiritual, but that is our character. So I want to break this down in terms of what we've been doing a little bit in this class on the Asma wa Sifat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So let me say this again. Tahdib al-Ikhlaq is the science or the ethics of our behavior, of our manners, of how we practice. From tahdib comes the word hadaba, which means to train, clean, improve, and refine someone's personal development. So within the very science of Islam, and one of the great ways of doing this is studying the names and attributes of Allah, is this focus on cleaning and purifying. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent the messenger to do what? To purify them and to teach them the book of wisdom. So we should actively be purifying ourselves and emptying ourselves of our dirt And how do we get the wisdom? We will only get the wisdom if we learn it from divine revelation and then implement it. It is not wisdom unless it's practice. It's just knowledge. You may have the knowledge, but wisdom is implemented knowledge. Tahdib is training and education for personal improvement and moral education, the standard for good behavior. Akhlaq, translated in English dictionaries as disposition, nature, temper, ethics, morals, or manners of a person, interestingly enough, is the plural of the word khulq, which means disposition. So when you look at your own disposition, how you're disposed, your nature, your temperament, is it one of generosity? Is it one of benevolence? Is it one of kindness? Or do people run when they see you coming? Akhlaq is from khalaqa, which means to create, shape, and mold. Each one of us should be creating, shaping, and molding ourselves. And the greatest verse for me that I love so much in this subject matter is from Surah Ash-Shams, which I believe is Surah 91, and it's verses 7 through 10. And tells us to consider the human soul. What was it designed for? What is it intended to be? Those who give order in proportion to it, those who study their soul, who purify their soul, they will be triumphant, and those who do not will bury it in darkness. And think about that. What is denial? It's darkness. I don't want to be enlightened. I don't want to know. I'm not that way. No. My family tells me I'm this or I'm that. We say, no, I am not. I'm the most generous person in the world. The family says, you're so loud, you're always running your mouth. No, I do not. So rather than work on our soul and recognize the feedback that the universe is giving us, we push it away and we live in darkness, and we do not give order in proportion to our soul. So akhlaq is from khalaqa, which means create, shape, and mold. How are you molding and shaping your soul? That which will return to Allah, is that not the most important thing to create, shape, and mold? We will spend an inordinate amount of time at the gym trying to create guns. Never worked for me, maybe when I was 20, but we will spend an inordinate amount of time trying to deal with the physical body. We will even go to the dermatologist. We will have a facelift, and we won't be seen for a week while our face recovers. But how much pain are we willing to go through to give order and proportion to our soul? Literally, do you have a vision and a mission? Do you have a goal? Do you have a culture, for your soul? Or do you simply not focus on it? It's just not that important. I'm on automatic pilot. I'm always going to do what I've always done. I'm always going to get what I've always got. And I'm not real interested in doing anything else. How many people have heard that just maybe recently from someone? It's just the common mantra of many people. And that means that you're somnambulistic. It means that you're walking in your sleep. You're not awake. How can you be nafs lawama, a soul that is awake and aware, if you're unconscious? The Holy Prophet ﷺ said, you should create within yourselves the akhlaq, the behavior of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is from Bukhari. So if I am to learn the behavior of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it is absolutely necessary for me to know these names and attributes. Otherwise, I cannot achieve what I've been commanded to achieve. All people are born on the fitrah, the true noble character. This is also from Bukhari. So this is the proofs, the dalil for some of the things I've said today. Fitra is the natural state in which humans are created by Allah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, let there be no change in this fitra. So that means I've got to go back and undo all the things that I've learned in my environment. When I came out of my mother's womb, I was absolutely perfect. I was in that state of fitra. And as I watched other human beings unable to control their will, and those who did not have adabs, I learned how to do that, and I adopted those things. Now I must spend the rest of my life purifying, getting rid of those beliefs that I took outside of myself that are contrary to the Quran and the Sunnah. And until I do that, my adabs and my manners will never be what they're supposed to be as a Muslim, the doer of peace, the one who surrenders. Fitra is the natural state in which humans are created by Allah. This level of human perfection is determined by discipline and effort. It is hard to change. We know that it takes usually about 21 to 30 days, according to which scholar you listen to establish a new change. Every year in January, the buzz, the front page articles are about New Year's resolutions. And by the second week in January, the people have forgotten about it. But as Muslims, if we are truly to surrender, we need to examine every single one of these names, the 49 that you know, and say, how do they manifest and realize themselves in my life? Have people learned about these names and attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because I manifested it? Or did they learn that I'm not to be trusted? Humans stand between two extremes. The lowest is below beasts, and the highest surpasses even the angels. And the Prophet ﷺ said that the latter would be better than the first. All the time people are trying to convince me we will never be like the Sahaba. They tell me, oh, brother, astaghfirullah, how can you even talk like that? You're too hard, brother. You expect too much. All I know is what my messenger said is that the latter had the potential to be better than the first. So if I believe it, then I must produce that. He didn't say that so that we could find an excuse to not improve ourselves. By improving one's akhlaq, Muslims improve their worship. If my manners, if my adabs, if the way that I'm molding and shaping myself, the way that I am creating myself is pleasing to Allah, then everything I do just about is going to be an act of worship. We are studying the names and attributes of Allah to acquire for ourselves a character whereby all our actions materialize and realize these attributes. I would like to go further to say that it is my dua for you and for me that we develop these names and attributes in our life intentionally, that we have a niyyah to develop these names and attributes. A conscious niyyah has to be followed up with what? Actions. So I hope that your character is not one that is haphazard. I hope that your character isn't just sort of, well, whatever happens, then I'll just be what I am. But that it is intentionally a character that is completely, consistently being purified, consistently being corrected. And the messenger of God, he looked at his character every single night, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When do we look at our character? In my experience in life, when you go to talk to someone about their character, they may tell you, mind your own business. Or I don't want to talk about it. Lord, here's a beautiful dua. You are the one who is Al-Majid in essence, qualities, and actions. You grant glory to whomsoever you please, and all glory is derived from yours. All perfection is derived from the overflow of the treasures of your honor. Permit us, Lord, to see the light of Al-Majid, so that we may win the honor of being your true servant, and clothe us with the attires of your eternal glory. For you are the one and the only one who can do this. And surely Allah blesses our Master Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the progeny and companions of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Do we have a conscious goal? And I would recommend that it's written, of how I will implement these names and attributes that I've learned. How they will become part and parcel of who I am. That would be just what people expect to see in me. And one of the qira'ah of the Holy Quran, the word is used in the nominative, rafa'. Allah Most High says in Surah 85:15, the glorious possessor of the throne. Here in this case you see that the pronoun acts as the subject and it gives emphasis to the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is said that Al-Majid means the one who is beautiful in action. It is also said to be the one who is bountiful in gifts, or the one who is exalted in rank, or the one who possesses perfect nobility, vast dominion, and who is limitless and unsurpassable. Can you imagine being unsurpassable in good deeds? And in the Quran enjoins us to do this. It says, vie with one another toward good deeds. We should be as if we're in the middle of a basketball game for Allah. All of us vying to see who can get the most points. I won't say any more because I'll mess it up if I try to talk about any kind of basketball or any kind of sport. It is also said to be the one who is bountiful in gifts, or the one who is exalted in rank. One who has no co-sharer in the divine's praiseworthy attributes. So if we could ultimately manifest and realize this attribute, then we would not be sharing it with anything else. One who knows that Allah is the glorious will humbly submit before the divine's authority and not look to others in what is ultimately the divine's affairs, and indeed everything is from the divine and unto the divine, and is thus the divine's affairs. We connect with this name by seeking glory and splendor through drawing near to the divine presence and by holding fast to the means of attaining the divine's honor, coupled with reverence and exaltation and expressing our utter neediness and want. If I know that Allah is the resplendid, if for one moment I am deluded to believe that things are not splendid, all I've got to do is look at this and know that, well, I'm just thinking wrong. My cognition is impaired, because that's not what Allah has said. Everything is splendid. Cultivate this name in your character by being glorious with your essence, attributes, and actions. Be glorious in your essence by making Allah the ultimate focus of your spiritual ambition. Be glorious in your attributes by having excellent qualities of character. And be glorious in your actions by constantly upholding good conduct and propriety and acquiring virtues. And I say to myself and I say to all of you that one of the best places to start is with your tongue. That if you literally will focus on what you're going to say before you say it, even if you're just in general conversation, often when I get passionate, you hear the word I said, that excitatory state, I talk too much, and then I have to ask people to forgive me. Be aware of this, folks. Because the Prophet ﷺ said that the two greatest challenges for us is that which is between our jaws and that which is between our thighs. One realizes this name when its reality is firmly entrenched in one to the point that it does not leave one when circumstances fluctuate and personal needs change. That right in the middle of what I believe to be the greatest calamity, my Lord is splendid. My Lord is waiting for me to hold my hands out, and He will not turn away from me. Beyond anything that I may experience in this world, I have my Lord that is closer than my jugular, waiting to answer my dua in the most abundant and splendid way. Al-Majid the glorious, is like the rising sun. Al-Majid is more like the noon sun. You can't look directly at the resplendent noon sun. However, its light allows us to see the splendor of the world around us, the trees, mountains, and amazing faces of the people we meet. How splendid is it that I get the blessing to see all of these beautiful faces. Some of you can see the back of somebody's head. But how splendid is it that I get to see the uniqueness of Allah's creation in every one of you. Its light allows us to see the splendor of the world around us, the trees, mountains, and amazing faces of the people we meet. Because of the sun's light flowing into the world receives a borrowed splendor. The light of revelation flowed into Muhammad ﷺ, and through him it flowed into the Muslim community, raising them up to serve Allah as splendid human beings. Those who stood on an exalted standard, that is where we are striving to get. That was the standard of our messenger. Peace and blessings be upon him. To be exalted, to be among the highest in behavior. The light of revelation will heal us. The light of revelation will guide us abundantly, and without it, we are not in guidance. We are in misguidance. We are actually in jahil. We are in ignorance if we are not guided by these principles. And we are reminded this in the khutbah al-hajjah at almost every speech. I don't do the full one, but the best of guidance is the guidance from Allah and from the Sunnah. And anyone who goes against this and innovates something in the religion, it will be in the hellfire. In Surah Al-Buruj, verses 14 to 16, and Allah is most forgiving, the loving, Lord of the resplendent throne. Even the throne of God, we are reminded that it is so splendid that it's resplendent. It's more than splendid. It's even beyond what we can imagine. There are volumes written about the Arsh, the throne of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In Islam, the splendid human being is the one who serves others and serves Allah. We want to be adopting in our character, and what I will say is that many of the Muslims that I have met as I embraced Islam taught me about collective generosity. I grew up in a world that was more individualistic in its approach. It's about me. It's what I want. But in the Islamic world, I saw something very beautiful. And I see very beautiful things when people come forth and people are suffering, and I see people come with their sadaqah. Unlike anything I've ever seen among Muslims. And many of them do not want anyone to know. They do what they do for Allah. They will do a splendid gift, and they don't want anyone to know. Just as blessings flow to us from the resplendent, and light flows to us from the sun, help flows to us from those who humbly serve. There are many ways in which we can serve, and we should never be too quick to presume that somebody provides no service or is of no use. If I am resplendent and I see the splendidness of every single thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, how can I ever say about His creation that something is useless? Or that something is flawed? No, insha'Allah, we will attain to the level that when we see a servant of God, we see the fitra of Allah. We see that person is beautiful. Perhaps we need to love them and teach them. But what do we really see? Do we see the splendidness of what Allah has created? Hidden services are often the most beautiful kind because people are not doing them to be praised or recognized. The Prophet ﷺ hinted at this when he said that we should not let the left hand know what the right hand is doing. We are all part of one body. When one member hurts, do we all hurt? And if we don't, that should be part of our manners. That we connect with each other. And when one hurts, we all hurt. And so here we're going to have some reflections, inshallah, and I would invite you to participate in this, and we will open up for discussion. The Christian monk St. Francis said about the sun, "He is beautiful and radiates great splendor. He carries your sign, O Most High." What does it mean to radiate? Can people radiate?
Yes.
Give me more. How do we radiate? Now, the dhikr of Allah. Absolutely. How else do we radiate?
Through our actions, through our words.
Let me ask you.
Smiling.
Thank you. Does that not change your countenance when someone smiles at you typically? Isn't it like radiation? It goes deep, doesn't it? How else do we radiate? Radiation, we used to have old heaters in New York. We called them radiators. They were cast iron and they made pss, 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 all kinds of noise and weird noises at night, particularly if you were cold. What did it radiate? It sent out so much heat. Sometimes in New York, I used to have to raise my window in the window because it got too hot in my apartment. No, that radiator never stopped. But imagine if we were radiators that never stopped for Allah, that we never stopped with being kind and benevolent and merciful and splendid, that we were radiators of splendidness, of splendor. The English nurse Florence Nightingale asked, "How can we be stewards of grace to one another?" What does a steward of grace look like? When are we stewards of grace? What about when we pardon someone without them asking? Because we know how deeply we need to be pardoned. So we forgive before they ask. Because we know we've done the same thing before. How else are we stewards of grace? When somebody does come and say, "Forgive me," we don't say, "I'm never going to forgive you. You can forget about it. Hang it up. It's not going to happen." No, of course I forgive you because I want Allah to forgive me. What are ways that we commit to serve others and Allah? And then I would ask you not to say this out loud, but to look inside and ask yourself, who are the splendid people in your life that Allah has blessed you with? So probably the husbands in the room will say their wives, and the wives will say their husbands. At least they better. But think about it. How many splendid people do you know? Seriously. If I ask you, can you think on your hand of 5 splendid people? Now, I'm going to ask a deeper question. I don't want you to answer it. Are you splendid? Are you splendid for the sake of Allah? Are you splendid for the sake of your community? Are you splendid when it comes to your family? Are you splendid when it comes to your practice of Islam? Are you splendid when it comes to how you behave with the world, in public and in private? Any questions, reflections? Anything anyone would like to share?
Deep in thought.
How many have seen or studied this name before? Just did you see anything different, sister, or just?
It's just like because most Majid for me is like Quran Majid or it's the highest level of something. So that is what I know the meaning of it, and it's just yeah.
Anybody else want to share at all?
It's just that when you were saying about the dua, you saw in your life if people read Quran and they become cure and their problems or disease, whatever. So there's one where it's a true story about Harun Rashid. He was the king, and his daughter was sick, she was having stomach pain. So he called all the tabis, the doctors, and they tried to cure her, but nothing worked. So someone said that there is a very pious man, and he will read something, ayat of Quran, and she will be okay, inshallah. And then he called him, and the people, they were in the court, and they were start laughing and making fun of this guy, how we gave her best of best medicine, and he's going to recite something and she will be okay. And the pious man said, ask king, if you allow me 5 minutes only, I can say anything I want, then I will, after 5 minutes, I will stop and I will recite and she will be cured. And the king allowed him to say whatever he likes to say. So for 5 minutes, he starts saying all the bad things about these people, like you're this, you're that, you're this, and you're liar. And they start like, they were all angry and bad, and they were just about to kill him. And after 5 minutes, he stopped. And he said, when my bad words can affect on your emotions so badly that you're about to kill me or your colors, face is changed, don't you think the good words can affect on you too? So these are the words of Allah. So he did, recite Quran, and she was cured. But the problem is sometimes I listen from people, okay, oh, we read this surah, nothing happened, and we read this ayat of Quran, nothing happened. And I say, it's the status of level. Like in this world, if you have a friend, and that friend will allow you to use his resources, and he will give you favors. Only friends can do it. But if Allah is not your friend in past, and you were like a stranger for him all your life, or you were doing, you don't have that much, favor from him. So he will allow you to, when you're reading something and someone is getting cured, your du'as are taking longer time to accept. So that is the.
And for the Arab-speaking audience here, if you have something to add in terms of the meanings of some of the roots that I used, I would love to hear that too. So if I missed out something that could be embellished upon on any of the roots, I would appreciate it if you shared that with us. Yes, Albert.
We're talking about radiant. I'm reading a book about the history of Muhammad. And way before 610, he was 40, his uncle made him in charge of managing the caravans. And despite him coming from an orphan background, which already makes him, in that society, a substandard individual, he was highly regarded, and people actually described him in that fashion as being very radiant with his character, his benevolence, giving back to the people, the poor, his smile, his eyes, just everything about him, even his actions, it's recorded that they were pure. And so despite his orphan status, just people view it
Yes.
as being splendid or radiant.
Good point. I was thinking when I was saying the word radiant about the nur of Allah. So sometimes you will hear people say that person, you could see the nur in them. You see like light reflected in that person. That radiance, we all want to be striving for that. That not that it will be seen by people, but that for the sake of Allah, we are radiating light everywhere we go. That our adabs are such that we radiate light, that people find hope and assurance in us. How could you not find hope and assurance in a believer? If the believer's adabs are correct, how could you find anything but hope in them? Yeah. The ones who don't have hope are the ones who don't believe, because they're on this spiritual journey, but the plane's not going in a good direction. Any other comments? Sharing? Please don't be shy. Nothing? Okay. Baby steps count, but you need to have the baby steps. You know, sometimes people use that, and I'm not picking on you, Mason, I'm just using the example. Some people use that, though, as a cop-out. They say, oh, I'm just doing baby steps, and I'll say to them, so tell me what they are. And they start stuttering. So if you say, I'm going to do baby steps, write them down. No, be able to say what they are. Because really, remember the words that I used. We are actually supposed to be shaping and molding our souls back to what it was when Allah gave it to us. And that is an active process. Otherwise, the majority of signals, if the majority of signals that you're getting are from your nafs or your aql, you're not going to be in a very healthy state. Because your mind will tell you, oh, they don't like me at Islam Inc. maybe. Somebody say, oh, I went to that group, I don't think they like me. And it's up here. But if I know what the Quran says about believers, then I'm going to do some questioning. Why don't I feel like there? Hopefully everyone feels loved here. And I'd like to repeat our vision, a non-castigating, a non-condemning, a non-indicting, and a non-critical culture. Inshallah, a place where we create the space for you to actually grow and evolve spiritually. A space where we encourage you to manifest and realize these attributes that you're learning about. And hopefully making it safe for you to do that. Feel that you have the encouragement of a family to move on spiritually.
Sister Patricia that used to come here when she sent her salam here.
Oh, mashallah.
Really struggling, missing our class.
Yeah. We have never, ever lost a student that moved that did not usually write or call or send us a text and say, if only I could find this where I am. We even have ansars. We have people that were born into Muslim families that say, I get my battery charged because of the love that I experience from the Islamic family. People say that. And let me say that it shouldn't be that way. What I mean by that is, you should experience that love at every house of God that you go into. Love is a part of Islam. So much so that I remind myself and I remind you that we are commanded to tell each other that we love you, that we love each other. It's a command. And yet when I try to revive that sunnah, some people are so uncomfortable. When I say, Ana yuhibbu fi sabilillah, they say, yeah. Because they get nervous. They're uncomfortable. They get uncomfortable when they're told, I love you. How can that be splendid?
You don't hear it often.
Yeah.
Well, we're working on it here.
What do you think? I don't know if there's a hadith or some wise man said nature cannot be changed. If you tell me the mountain move, I will believe. But if you tell me the nature changed, someone's nature is changed, then I won't believe it. So what do you think about that?
It's contrary to the teaching of Islam, because Allah told us to give order and proportion to it. Allah said He doesn't change the conditions of man except by His own soul. So absolutely, I can tell you that I know that my nature changed.
I mean,
Yeah.
nature cannot change, but you can change the channel. Like Umar bin Khattab, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he was the very, brave and angry kind of personality. But before he accepted Islam, his nature was using in a wrong purpose. When he accepted Islam, he was still brave, and his nature
Yes.
was going in the right purpose.
So your nature changed.
The nature was same, but the channel was different.
Yes. Well, Allah knows best.
His nature changed.
Channel
Yeah.
was changed.
And his nature changed.
All I know is this, that Allah gave us 3 in the Quran levels or stages of development of the human soul. And all I know is that all of the shining stars, and when I say the shining stars, I'm referring to the companions of the Messenger of God. May Allah bless all of them. There is so much evidence that they changed. All I know is that to do peace, you have to change. Because when you come to peace, you are in a state of dis-ease. Every single one of us, we might not have been conscious of it, when we came to Islam, we were in jahl. We were in ignorance. And ignorance in and of itself makes the human uneasy. It makes them anxious. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a way to change all of that. What I want to encourage you to do as my family is I just want to encourage you to change. To make a conscious effort that I want to become conscious of what I am doing. I want to be aware of what I'm doing. I want to be aware of which signal is coming to me. Am I operating from my aql? Am I operating from my nafs? Or am I operating from my ruh? Am I acting like an angel, or am I acting like a dog or a hyena or whatever animal, a monkey, whatever animal you relate to? The Messenger of Allah came to change people. Islam changed so many nations of people. The nature was to have no respect for women. In the first Islamic state in Medina, those women were treated with respect because they had the Messenger of God setting the example. But today we've gone backwards. Our women are not respected. They're not even respected in the house of God, predominantly. Not always, nothing's always. But many women feel disconnected because they are not revered. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said that we should revere the wombs that bore us. Well, every woman in this room that had a child bore me. Now you may say, wow, that's way out there. They are giving me the future. Every woman in here is giving me the future imam. The future female scholar. She's also an imam. She can lead the prayer for women. So the future imams, I just want to make sure that I'm inclusive here. But I want to lovingly beseech and implore you to set out for change. To really purify yourself. We desperately need to be moving in a purified direction. And it will only happen when we consciously set goals to do that. When we are being taught. It's sad to me that you only get this food perhaps once a week. Many people tell me this. I go there because I get my battery charged. But we need this at least twice a week. I'm just talking about the spiritual need. I know as a shepherd that you guys need this twice a week. But at least every 3 days we need this. So I can't express this with love enough, except to say that it is my prayer that people walk out of here and that they are changed, not by me, but that they change their conditions because of the knowledge that they gain. And that they do that which is splendid, that which is benevolent, that there's no place in our life to cheat or to lie or to deceive or to delude. Only we are creating the space to be splendid and to know the splendid one, the resplendent one, the resplendent.
It's a matter of ask and you shall receive. You know, I lately have been having experience, you know, like you said, watch what you say. And it says, what would you want to you say? Oh, and it just comes out. You know, the other day was a physical change. Somebody, my former boss, you know, a little bit of it. She like, aren't you glad you got rid of me? And then I just wanted to burst and just vomit everything that I wanted to tell her for the 7 years of abuse. You know, the whole department was abused by her. And I asked, and my heart physically warmed up. And then I said, every relationship there is love and hate to it. But before that, I asked Allah, just put the words in my mouth. Don't let me say what you don't want me to say. And it just was changed in seconds. And I said, I wish you success, I wish many blessings, and I turned away, and nothing else happened.
Yeah.
So it's just ask.
And it goes back
Do it.
even to last week. Who remembers the name last week? Al-Wadud.
I want you to do it again, please.
How can you say that I implement the character of Al-Wadud, but I'm still envious with my boss? I cannot forgive them.
What did you say again? I'm just Googling what I do.
Now, I said, how can we say that we know Al-Wadud, the all-loving, but I cannot forgive my boss? So I'm still angry. I'm carrying jealousy and envy and resentment toward my boss for 7 years. So you found that your heart had been purified to the point that you could just let that go. And in that moment, you were benevolent. Because if you look at what she gave you for 7 years and what you gave back, that would be considered benevolence. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yes,
and
brother.
actually had the heart to hug her and just embrace her with loving and care. I just wish you can see this, you know, just thought in my mind. I just wish you could see how much easier it would be if you were loving and caring to everybody.
And thank you for sharing that. That's big. So thank you.
It was big.
And I want to encourage you to share in the family when we have these discussions after the class, because when someone shares like something like that, aren't you encouraged? That I want to experience that. I want to feel that I have changed. Laith, sorry, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to speak actually on change because I get where you were coming from in terms of, like, apparently the personality forms at 3 years old, so we kind of are always ourselves in a sense. However, I'm thinking about personally, from a spiritual standpoint, when I was away from the deen, the big pain I felt was I always felt alone. And I think a lot of us feel pain. And once I actually feel like Allah's with my heart, I never truly feel alone. So that's, in a sense, I feel like that's changed. Because my thoughts no longer feel like no one cares, no one's there to help me. Because regardless, it's all from Allah. So I get where you're coming from. I actually do believe, though, that change does happen. So
Channel was changed in my philosophy.
I get where you're coming. I get where you're coming.
Well, and I can certainly see where Fawzi is coming from, because if I come from my nafs, that channel will be all about me. So I'm going to always be going after what I want. And the win-win for the person who's coming from that channel is I win and you lose. But win-win when you're coming from the ruh is I go to you and I say, look, I want us both to win. How can we do this? Even in relationships. If I'm struggling in a relationship, imagine if I go to someone and I say, I want to win here. I want to be obedient to my Lord, and there's some friction between us now. Can we talk and dialogue about that? Can we resolve that? Love, love, love. If I can encourage you to just love. When you see people, love them. Love them and forgive them. Just love them and forgive them, and it is a medicine for the heart. If you want to see your heart change, your channel change, just love people and forgive them. It absolutely will soften your heart. I believe what I heard and what I saw in Deborah's sharing was that her heart, because she forgave and loved, was softened.
It was a physical sensation. It was amazing because all I wanted was just to jump on her jugular and say, yes! I'm gonna kill you now. And now it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
And see, this goes back to something I talk a lot about, in the sense that there's that animal in us. There's that shaitan in us. And we can hook into that channel, and then we can come to blows with someone. But if I go to that ruhani nature of mine, that angelic nature of mine, how can I do that? If I think that every single action of mine is alive, every single thing you do is alive. It's traveling around. Just as the world is moving and everything in the world is moving, everything you do is taken up as a witness to you. There are these paradisal objects in the unseen world. Imagine if all of them are about love. That when the angels hear about them, they are mentioning your name in high places.
I feel like you're doing muraqabah, like as a group muraqabah, when the Sufi, they do the muraqabah, spiritually, they try to,
Channel.
change.
We used to do this. So when we first started in 2007, it was really funny because it was published that we were a support group. So people thought, well, what is it, a bunch of alcoholics? Because we used the word support group. So, but it was indeed, but it was a spiritual support group. It was, and I hope that we haven't lost that. I want.
I'm still looking a place where I can go for the muraqabah.
Yeah.
To control.
So hopefully, inshallah, at the end of the class, we will rekindle that sort of spirit of group support, where we can share at that level. Because it was very effective. But it was funny because it looks a little like therapy. But it's soul therapy, though. It's simply to bring encouragement so that everyone has that juice to change.
Yeah. Actually, we don't have slides today. And
Yes.
I really appreciate your hard work. But connecting with us all the time, I like this more.
Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Did you want to share something?
No.
Oh, okay.
Eddie wanted to
Oh,
say
Eddie.
earlier.
I would have. I was thinking about, she mentioned it, when you mentioned at the beginning of the class, the Quran healing. Like, I've experienced that personally myself. I was just thinking about maybe mentioning that. But, what do you call it? Yeah, I've experienced that like a few times myself, and so it was real.
I will share too that I find the Asma wa Sifat of Allah very healing for my soul. That oftentimes I like to go back and just go through them, and it makes me so connect with Allah. So I encourage you to do whatever you can do to feed yourself and to keep your spiritual battery fully charged. Don't let the red light come on or the caution light come on the charge plate. Yeah. Keep your battery, keep yourself fueled. And I can tell you that in my experience, when I feel love from you guys, and I feel love from you, it is a motivator for me. Because often I don't feel love. Often I feel criticized. Often people pointed a finger at me because of my work in domestic violence. When a man has beaten his wife, then he tells the community, Imam Sykes calls us to get a divorce. And it's all my fault.
Oh, my ex-husband tells me all the time, you let it go.
So, you know,
Anything to me, you did.
yes. So I say that to say that I feel love from this family. And I pray that we share this love with others. And in saying that, I'm not a numbers person, but I am saddened that I know that there are other people in this city that need this. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be courageous. I don't know of a Muslim that doesn't need this.
It's true. No, I don't think any human.
So I want to encourage you to invite people to this. I see so much pain. I see so much pain. So please share it. Maybe each one bring one. Make it an intention that I want to share this love that I experience when I come here with somebody else. I want somebody else to feel this love that I experience. And that way you will get blessings, inshallah, for bringing that kind of peace to another person. So I always love the sharing, and if anyone else would like to share, please do. Anything you have on your heart in terms of this. If not, I will remind you that I do love you all for the sake of Allah. And that I pray for you. And I miss you terribly. So when I send some people text, I missed you, it's not to make you feel guilty. I want you to hear me say this. When I or Sister Naran call to check on you, it is genuinely because we love you and we miss you. It's not to castigate, criticize, or indict you. It's just to let you know that we care. And some of you may not know this, but when Sister Naran and I are traveling to do da'wah, we go through our phone and we pray for everyone. We pray for every Muslim on our phone. And this is a way that we manifest love. If you want your love to grow towards someone, there's a few things we find in the hadith. Give that person gifts and pray for that person. The prayer is an unseen gift. What was that? Yes. Mm-hmm. Exactly. No one else? Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.